Good evening, good morrow, and good day, and welcome to another campaign diary and Q&A here on Slice and Dice, talking about everything that went down in the last two sessions. That's sessions 41 and 42. So it's a good point to be talking about because the last two sessions really have been starting a sort of miniature little, I say quest, investigation, completely kind of separate from 40, which had a kind of quite a conclusive end with the group being reunited back at the Trickle Inn, the tavern in Hilberg. And so the main themes that we kind of dealt with in the last two sessions were really to do with investigation as they looked into what was going on and looking into finding this dagger that had been rumoured about that could be linked to what the Red Mages are plotting. So vital for them to go and find that. It also is kind of leading into, so as well as these big plots and alluding to things that are going on in the background and may become more important throughout the campaign, we've also kind of had the last two sessions be a bit more of I guess, relaxed by comparison to 39 and 40, with obviously the big boss fight and near-death experience and sort of one of the player characters, a big sort of momentous occasion. So 41, 42 feels like the kind of the calm after the storm in some senses. There was we had a big fight in the last session with the group finally came across a monster that has been seen, but only back in the very first session of the campaign, but defeated it a lot easier than I think probably they were expecting to, or certainly they defeated it a lot easier than they would have done 40 or so sessions ago. So yeah, I guess the main themes today really is kind of winding down towards downtime, and also callbacks and plot hooks and little tidbits for sort of major campaign stuff. So those are really the things we're going to be touching on today. For those of you who haven't done so already, we've got a new feature here on YouTube, which I hope you guys check. I say here on YouTube. I'm currently on Twitch, but when you're watching this on catch-up, you'll be watching it on YouTube. So you may well be watching this on YouTube. Anyway, we have a new feature on our YouTube channel, which is our Don't Believe the Hype series. This is basically a review series where I will talk to you about features and elements of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I think may have been criminally underrated or have been passed up and much maligned by a lot of the online community, certainly, but on the D&D community as a whole may have underrated, or perhaps just has got a bad press, and kind of trying to give a counter argument to that, and try and give, I guess, a bit of nuance to say, well, maybe these features aren't so bad. Maybe it's been misunderstood, and offering my thoughts on that. So Don't Believe the Hype is our new series on YouTube. It will be going out periodically. It's not going to be in a regular slot like our live streaming is here on Twitch. That's right, because I'm currently live on Twitch. So it will be a bit more of an ad hoc basis, but to make sure that you are one of the first to watch the new Don't Believe the Hype videos as they go live on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. That way you'll be notified straight away as soon as it's released. So our first Don't Believe the Hype video that's up now, to kind of give you an idea of the kind of things I'm talking about, is a review of the Ranger class, just sticking to the core class features, not talking about subclasses in this first one, just the core class, because out of all of the classes in 5th edition, it's the one that does receive the most flack that I've seen. There it is there, Don't Believe the Hype. Go and check out the first episode now, up on YouTube. Anyway, that's enough plugging out of the way. So let's talk about what happened in the last couple of sessions. So the first thing, in the morning, after our group reawoke, they were notified about smoke rising on the northern point of Half-Life Forest, which they may have recognised at the time, but certainly it was made clear later on that this was in the direction of the inn, Flaming Jack's Bar and Grill, which was one of the first locations to feature in the campaign. It was all the way back in session 1, and in fact it was the party then ended up going back there later on, I think for sessions like 10 through 14, 15. So it's been a prominent feature in the campaign, so far. Anyway, traveling on the road, they then discover that it has been burned down and destroyed. And there was some illusions there when they arrived, but basically things kind of came a bit full circle, and I think I can probably disclose here a bit more of what may have been going on, what machinations were at play in the background that the players, for instance, the characters would not have been aware of. So before that, our party, as they were on the road, came across Callie Shallows, the halfling investigator from Subtle Services, who had been requested some time ago that when she got some time to deliver Seth's hat back to him as he'd left it in the inn in Halfreach. And that was a long time ago, session-wise. We're talking session 2 or 3. But anyway, finally, she's made her way back towards Hilberg and delivered it as it found them on the road. There's also, it was nice having Callie back as well, not just because she's a fun character, but also because of the dynamic with how she interacts with the party. She has a bit of a crush on Fleeting Look, and she's quite brazen about it. And it was interesting to see Dan then, with who plays Fleeting Look, to then kind of rebuff her and give her the cold shoulder, and then for her to react with that. So there was definitely some character development in that sense. But anyway, she tells the party, informs them of what she's seen with Flaming Jacks being burned down, and leads them back there. We also, tidbit, found out that Horsey, the group's horse, or well, Seth's horse, as I suppose he is taking control of the horse, is in fact called Reginald, and he was quite shocked to hear that, and I think he's still. Seth and James are both trying to deny that this is the case and that is his actual name. But since Leoberin used his new feature of being able to speak with animals on Reginald, he got to speak and hear it literally from the horse's mouth. And that was just another nice little moment, because remember that although Seth has claimed this horse, it's not really his horse at all. In fact, it's one of the horses from back in Halfreach, I believe that horse was, that had been used to. It was a carriage, and which they then set fire. It was Lady Grenforth's carriage that they commandeered when they found it abandoned, and he rode that horse since. So it's not really his horse at all. It belongs to the Grenforths of the Crowflies, quite a powerful family, although Lady Helene herself is still turned to stone and waiting in the temple until our party can figure out how to unpetrify her. So anyway, as you can probably tell, 40 sessions in, there's a lot of spinning plates going on here. But so coming back to Flaming Jacks, I've been feeding to the party for a long time about this dagger. It had been mentioned in passing pretty much every time that the players were at Flaming Jacks, that they had this bone dagger above the bar. It was very interesting, very ornate. But no more was kind of spoken of it than that. And of course, the players weren't given really a reason to interact with it more other than observe that it was an interesting feature. So then to learn from Royston the Bag, another callback from session 1, that he was asked by the Red Mages about this dagger, kind of tells you that there must be something more important. There are things afoot, and it was really rewarding to kind of have those seeds that had been planted in session 1, then almost a year later in session 40, session 40 I think it was, have those kind of bud and come to fruition. And we've seen the same with in addition to that, so not just Royston the Bag, but also the Earth Elemental that was revealed in this session. The party ended up fighting in the middle of the forest, but we'll get to that. So the party investigated the ruins, found a couple of characters who frequent Flaming Jacks, or had frequented Flaming Jacks, found a few bodies as well, unfortunately, but they managed to save a couple, and also finally found a reason to go and find a line of inquiry. They had found that the dagger had been taken, and its placard, its mounting, had been left behind. And Nibbles got a whiff of a trail, which our players could then follow out from Flaming Jackson into the forest, Half-Light Forest. And what was quite telling and I guess would fill the party with trepidation was also seeing the destruction on the edge of the forest. There was a separate trail that seemed to be a very large being that had destroyed some trees en route. So that wasn't a pun. That wasn't a tree pun. It just happened. So there was a lot to take in there. And as they continued the trail, this next bit actually in session 42, the crux of the session kind of came about because of a random encounter. I had written out this random encounter sheet ages ago, and I, sometimes I roll on it, and this particular one came up at this time when they're in the forest, and thought, okay, this makes sense. Let's roll with this. So they ended up meeting a centaur in a clearing, whose name was Florian. Florian warns the party about a scarecrow, a possessed creature that was on the loose in the forest and could cause them some discomfort, shall we say. And sure enough, it did appear to the party while they were continuing to search. And in that, they found they found that the scarecrow really was not much of a match for them at all. It was it kind of shows the party how far they've come as an adventuring group and how much they've grown as characters. They're now sort of touching level 5, and back in level 2, for instance, they would have struggled against such a foe as this scarecrow that was resistant to non-magical damage and the rest of it, because they, most of them being spellcasters and just being very powerful adventurers now in their own right, they could deal with this pretty quickly. But more of a match for them would have been the earth elemental that then came to appear. So why did I mention this earlier on? Basically, if I take you back to session 1, so Seth was positioned in sort of the foothills of the Rakgarat Mountains, just off of the he was just on the road, should I say, to the down. No, I've got this completely wrong. He was on the road, heading. He was in a prison wagon, and he was being taken to Ilurbarak to await trial, because he was a pirate and he'd been captured sniffing about in the foothills of the Rakgarat Mountains by guards who had identified him as or a suspected pirate. So he was then taken prisoner, and then while he was on the wagon, fortune would have it that this earth elemental came up through the ground, crashed into the wagon, and sort of broke it apart, which then gave our prisoners the fugitive kind of aspect here, an opportunity to leave and to escape. Now, the 3 prisoners that were alongside Seth, one was a sort of a crazed lunatic who ended up getting squashed by the earth elemental. The other 2 were there was a lizard folk, not lizard folk, a dragonborn, a dragonborn lady, a copper dragonborn, who seemed to communicate a bit with Seth and in some way assisted him, although she had more of a vendetta against the guard and was trying to escape. We later found out through meeting this character in Hilberg that they were in fact a member of the Moonrunners, a group of thieves and smugglers who have a base of operations, at least partially, in Hilberg. So she was one of the captives, and the other was a halfling grave robber by the name of Royston the Bag. And he was the character that apparently this earth elemental was after. It ignored Seth completely, and instead went straight for the halfling to grab him and take him away. And that's in fact exactly what ended up happening. Seth could do nothing to stop that. So then when in 40-odd sessions later, session, I think it was 39 actually, when they first... No, I think it was 40. Anyway, 39 or 40, where they found Royston the Bag captive in the Red Mage cells in Korak. So straight away, alarm bells there. This must have been the group who summoned the elemental to capture him and take him away. So then having that elemental appearing again suggests that the red mages are aware of what's going on, or in fact that the party have happened across the red mages as they are trying to track down this bone dagger. And it seems that that was one of the items they were after all along. Because let's not forget that it was made clear when Nerys was taken captive by Daemon, the leader of the red mages in Korak, that they required her blood, and it was linked to their sort of modus operandi, which was to bring back the dragons of old. And apparently Nerys' blood is required for that. And in addition to that, apparently this bone dagger plays some part. So obviously I'm not going to give too much away from that because that's major plot spoilers. But evidently there is a list of items and things that the red mages require to carry out this nefarious ritual to bring back the dragons. And it's kind of shaping up, I think, probably will have been... I think when you could probably guess already that this is something that our party may have to play a part in trying to stop the red mages from carrying this out. It's up to them, of course, how they go about doing this and whether they actually want to or whether they just want to kind of leave well enough alone and get on with whatever they're doing. But this is something that even if the players do not act, if the characters do not act, will be going ahead unchallenged. The red mages ultimately want to bring back the dragons and they require components to do so. So it's a big plot points alert there. But these last couple of sessions really have been tying up a few loose ends and winding things down, because so far for the last 40 odd sessions, this has taken place in game time for just under 2 weeks, but it's kind of 2 weeks where our characters really haven't had much of a break. They've been running from disaster to disaster, trying to sort things out, essentially. And so systematically, it's been nice to kind of tick off things on their list. So even if it's minor things like Seth getting his hat back and then Fleeting Look delivering Seth the hat that he had commissioned to be made from bits and pieces, it was just a nice moment to have that be kind of ticked off their list. And then Seth offered his original hat to Fleeting Look, saying that means now they'll look like the same, that they can look like a team. This means that because of Fleeting Look being a tiefling, and obviously being with the horns, will have to get the hat adjusted in some capacity to accommodate his horns. But I'm sure that with enough time spent on it, he can get that sorted, no problem. But also other things that are kind of on the list and are ticking away here with the party. So warlocks and their patrons have an interesting relationship, and we saw this with Leobrin in session 40. It was revealed that Leobrin's patron is a Fae of the courts of the Feywild. She was of the Spring Court, Lady Aranth, first blooming, and after one night of we're not sure exactly what happened, but after one night together, I think you can probably guess what happened. But Leobrin has ended up with his powers through Lady Aranth. I'm not quite sure how that came about, but she is also now with child. And it's his baby, so clearly stuff has happened there. And it's also was a cautionary tale from her, because it appears that through a ritual back in session 14 to bring back Nerys from the dead, Leo has sacrificed some of his power, and as a result has sacrificed some of Lady Aranth's powers. And although we may not see it yet, one of the things that may become apparent unless the party can restore Lady Aranth's powers, the problem they're now having is that the Spring Court and Lady Aranth herself are going to start losing their powers, and those things will start to wane. And that, of course, means that our nature boy Leobrin will also see his powers diminish as well. So something that will need to be done, but again, time will tell with that. It's a bit of a slow burner. Also a slow burner has been for a little while now the old voice that is sort of embodied through the medallion that won't leave Seth alone, has been teasing him for quite some time, being aware of the fate that has befallen Fleeting Look, who's currently carrying the curse of lycanthropy, and so can turn into a werewolf unless he succeeds in a constitution save nightly. And this is a big threat to the party, of course, having a werewolf in their midst, but this voice has teased to Seth that he will be able to cure Fleeting Look of this ailment in exchange for Seth signing a little contract with him and being granted great powers beyond his understanding. So it's been something for Seth to think about for a while, but we'll see if he actually gets tempted by it and the lengths he'll go to save his friend and also to acquire himself more power. Is it too good to be true? From a disembodied voice that sounds a bit evil? Maybe. We'll see. That's entirely up to Seth how he wants to play that one going forward. So yeah, another thing that's kind of I would hope be ticked off in the next few days in game time. So basically, our party have been looking for the dagger, and they discovered through talking to Florian the Centaur that he had spotted two figures moving through the forest, and seems to fit the description of Jackburn Winklebottom, the proprietor of Flaming Jacks, who notably wasn't found when the place was burned down, when the party kind of excavated afterwards. And the second one matching some description you would guess of a forest warden, which the party have guessed would probably be Greenblade, the ranger that looks after the forest and the surrounding area, who would also help the party actually in tracking down Neris. So clearly a very active fellow now. So if the two of them are together heading away from the forest, where could they have gone, and why have they kept, or why have they sort of evaded the party? I'm sure it probably wasn't deliberate, but certainly there seems to be something going on there, which the party hopefully will uncover more of in the next session. Basically, though, whichever way that investigation goes, once that business is taken care of, it looks like our party can then return back to Hilberg and just kind of recuperate, get their belongings together, and also finally get their reward from Councillor Potter, who had promised the party for helping with the werewolf plot, and that they, for their services travelling to Rackfell Manor to uncover and thwart the plot to poison the nobility of Burokrin with the curse of lycanthropy. In exchange for that, they were promised suitable housing in the town, and so it'd be nice for our party to actually finally get at their base of operations. So they kind of would probably need a few days, I think, to settle themselves into there and get all those affairs in order. And in addition to that, I think there are personal things that each of the party members may want to take care of. But I will be discussing this with the players over the next couple of weeks to decide what it is exactly that they'd like to achieve in their downtime. It's the first time we've had some downtime here during this campaign, and I think it's a really good part, an important part of a long-term D&D campaign, because realistically your adventurers can't just keep on lurching from adventure to adventure without a break. People will just get exhausted. They need to have some time to take care of the more mundane aspect of life and of being an adventurer, because presumably you spend a few days out doing your adventuring stuff, or however long it takes, and then you take some time off where you're kind of back and enjoying the fruits of your labours, if you like. So I can guess a couple of things that the party may individually want to take care of. For instance, I think Neris now being back with the party, having confessed to inadvertently killing her aunt to her uncle, maybe want to speak to him, perhaps try and patch things up, although he didn't seem particularly annoyed with her. I imagine that the two of them being sort of family may want to kind of rekindle things a little bit, but that would be one avenue I think that could be explored in the downtime. Equally, Brucon, as a dwarf from the as a monk from the monastery, the Barkfang monastery, may want some time to just kind of rebalance himself, recenter and focus, as his own personal goals have kind of been interrupted by the developments of these adventures with this group so far. So maybe there'll be some things that he wants to achieve, or perhaps uncover some more information on what it is he's looking for, the elixir that much fabled that he desires. There's equally a couple of things our party probably should be wary of. Malar is very much aware of Lady Helene Grenforth still being turned to stone, as he was tasked with finding her and accompanying her on her sort of philanthropic mission around Burikrin, which has now been interrupted by her being turned to stone. So I think he'll be very keen to please the High Priestess, the Archpriestess. High Priestess Amakir. He'll want to impress her, and therefore will be very keen to pursue this and get Lady Helene back to human form as quickly as possible, as she's still waiting in the Temple of the Eight in Hilberg. But equally, they've also got their other lycanthropic charges waiting for them there as well. There is the lady from Loranlas, and there is the Captain Mandeville, waiting for them there. And obviously, they're also, like Fleeting Look, ticking time bombs. They have the curse, and unless something is done to rid them of the curse, they pose a risk to everyone. So some things may need to be done to kind of limit the damage that these two could possibly do, whether it's to kind of lock them up somewhere securely so that they can't pose a risk to the town, or whether it's to kind of banish them or otherwise. They need to do something really to make sure that these individuals don't pose a risk to their town. So perhaps a conversation with Councillor Potter will help them kind of figure out what they want to do with them. Seth, in his goal to acquire more power and become more powerful and to improve himself, may be tempted by the offer from the old voice, but it seems that I think over time, his attitude seems to have changed slightly. He has become slightly more altruistic in places, although impetuous and quick to offer the final solution to a problem. He has seemed to have softened in some senses compared to where we first met him. In others, perhaps he's got a long ways to go, but it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do with his time off. Probably even more of a question mark would be what Fleeting Look would like to do with his time ever. He's been made a Lance of the Order of the Broken Fang, currently now the only representative in Hilberg after his the Black Dragonborn, whose name now escapes me, can you believe? I played him for so long. Rexland Swordclaw. There we are. Rexland Swordclaw has now left Hilberg and headed back to the headquarters, all the way in Delvator. So while he's away, Fleeting is the only representative of the Order. So whether he wants to do something with that, or whether he has his own personal things that he'd like to take care of in the time, we'll have to wait and see. And then, not forgetting, of course, what Leobrin will be doing in his time off. Again, another one that he clearly has more business in Loranlas than he does in Burikrin, but he has a goal of his own, and from what I understand, it's trying to prove himself and his abilities as a hero, and so I think sticking with this group seems like a sensible way to go about that. But he may have to make some provisions himself, or else make some other plans, because he has proved to be particularly vulnerable to damage compared to a lot of the groups. He, especially in subterranean places where ceilings fall on him, that seems to happen quite a lot. So it will be, for me as a DM, I'm very open to see what these characters will do, given a couple of days of downtime. I've limited it to only a few days because other things are going on, folks. The search by the Red Mages will have no doubt come back onto the party's radar at some point, but they have other things going on in in the campaign that, again, with the downtime, hopefully can help them sort of clear a lot of these little niggles from their list of things to do. And really, because I guess in some ways this is kind of a course correct by giving the party too many things to do. I can appreciate as a player, you can get completely overwhelmed when loads and loads and loads of different plot hooks come up all at once. Kind of I would say the Skyrim effect, that when you get overloaded with side quests, you get so distracted from the main plot, you completely forget what you're doing. And it equally kind of makes the experience a bit less enjoyable. Now, it's important not to railroad your group into just, this is the one campaign, only do this. However, we kind of had the paralyzing effect on the other side of the spectrum by having too many things to take care of, and then that paralysis of choice being, I don't know which one to do next. So it's been nice to kind of systematically just one by one get rid of those jobs, to get them ticked off the list and move on to the next thing. But as you can hopefully have gleaned from the last couple of sessions, these plates have been spinning in the background and so on, and it all seems to be working towards something, and things start meshing and coming together. And when it does so, it's really rewarding for me to see those things come together, and then of course for those things to be revealed to the players as well. I take the analogy from if you're running, say, a mystery one-shot, like, for instance, the Amphale Assassin, which is now up on our YouTube channel. Check that out if you haven't seen it already. When you're running something where, as the DM, you know further ahead what's coming, you know some of the directions that this plot could go in, and ultimately you have an understanding of how everything fits together. You see, in the context of a murder mystery, if you're hosting, say, a murder mystery night at your house, you're aware of how everything fits together before the night starts, and you're aware of how it's basically, you are aware of who done it. But the thing is watching then the players work out and picking up the breadcrumbs, picking up the clues, not falling for the red herrings, and finding out and piecing it together themselves. That is really rewarding in of itself. And then, but equally, you can't just give them the answer. You've got to let them find it out on their own. And they may surprise you, because I think aside from a murder mystery, actually, no, that's probably still a good analogy. Because if they come to a conclusion that a different person was the one what done it, and they give very, very good reasons for it, I mean, even if they're wrong, that's surprising, and it could lead things into a completely different direction. So then, pulling back from the analogy now, so in a D&D campaign, although you as a DM have an idea of what's happening in terms of plot and the rest of it, it's ultimately the players that are steering the ship. You as a DM are the ocean, and you are the islands that they wish to visit. The players are the ones on the boat, and they are steering that boat. Now you can throw all of the elements and all of the storms against this ship, but ultimately whether it sinks or not is not so much down to you as a DM as to the players themselves. Sure, you could throw a lightning storm, you could throw a kraken at the ship, but the players could still find their way out of it. Yes, it could be challenging. Yes, it could be hard. But ultimately, it's going to be them that goes down with the ship. I'll probably leave the analogies now because it's probably starting to lose effectiveness. But anyway, it's been really nice to have these little moments and these callbacks with characters and so on in the last couple of sessions. Now, because we're 40 sessions in, we've had such a large worlds, even though we've stuck to just the one country of Burikrin in the many lands. There are plenty more, as you'll see on the map behind me. There are plenty of other nations that they could visit, but even in their sort of community at the moment, we've got so many characters, NPCs for them to meet, and that they may come across again, that this world feels very organic and alive. And it's also really great for creativity as a DM to then, when you come up with new quests and plots and the rest of it, to then have these other characters to pull on as well and be like, well, how does this character fit into this setting here? Or prime example would be so Seth sent off 2 NPCs to deliver basilisk parts to Captain Burns, a shipmate of his who has ship docked in Calas. Sending these guys off there, they at some point presumably will return back, and one of them was a bouncer from Flaming Jacks. That's where they were sent from, so they may well come back and find the place burned down, and then also have probably many tales to tell Seth and the gang about their expedition. So again, it's like bringing those characters back into things and seeing what they experienced outside of the party's area, because the world does keep turning while our characters and our party are off on their adventures. Other things are happening in the world. I say again, the Red Mages, they are plotting, they are scheming, they are doing things the entire time. And let's not forget the other organizations that our characters have come across, including the Guild of Many Masks, the Order of the Broken Fang, to name but a few. There are lots of things going on, but what will our players pick up on? What will our characters look into next? I guess it remains to be seen for both you and for me. But as for the campaign, we're back on Monday with session 43, where hopefully our characters will conclude their investigation into the dagger. Will they find it, or will they have it lost in the wind? We'll find out on Monday here on the channel at 6 p.m. Thank you all for watching, and of course, enjoy your weekend and stay safe.